Welcome to Gunnar Pavilion and a convincing victory for Arsenal against Sunderland, but it doesn't end there. The games are going to come in thick and fast, and Arsenal go to Brentford away from the Emirates in search of 3 points. And this game is going to be huge. Huge because it's on Thursday, huge because Arsenal needs to continue the momentum. We're now in that end game stretch now where every single game is like a cup final. Arsenal have got 13 until the end of the season if we want to lift this Premier League title. So we're going to do this game the way that we typically do it. We're going to look at what makes Brentford dangerous, what Arsenal can do, how this game will be won and lost. And more importantly, we'll look at Arsenal's lineup and also our predictions for this game. So before I continue, I will encourage you guys to hit that like and subscribe button as well. I do appreciate all of you that watch this channel. Please join in the conversation, as well. But let's get into it. Our Brentford versus Arsenal preview. Okay, so most of you that have watched this channel, we've been doing this thing about the road to 90, and we started looking at Arsenal games and kind of framing them into different contexts. Games that we've got to play at home, what we need to do to keep ourselves on track. Because I believe that if Arsenal get to 90 points, they will win this league. Manchester City can no longer get to 90 points, as well. So I think that's really, really important in terms of where Arsenal go from here. And this game is one of those games that we're in a bucket of 9 games, where most of them were away from home, but very, very important games in terms of if Arsenal stay on track with this game, we will arrive where we need to go. And we've played 4 already, of this such game. This is going to be the 5th of the 9th game, and we've taken 10 points from a possible 13. So I think if Arsenal are able to, get into this one, and we can win the next 3, and even a draw will keep Arsenal on target to where Arsenal needs to go. So this game is really, really important, from that perspective. You just do your job, from an Arsenal perspective, and the rest will take care of itself. Okay, so let's take a look at Brentford. And I've been researching Brentford, looking at what they typically do. And Brentford are one of those teams that, on paper can look very, very simple. If you watch their game, they can be convincing, but it also can, lull you into a false sense of security. But they're very deliberate in how they want to hurt you. Structurally, they're very, very flexible. They're one of these teams that, can set up a 4-3-3 and also set up a 3-5-2 as well. But their principles don't change. And what are those? They want to be compact. They want to be physical, and they want to be dangerous in moments. They don't intend to dominate for long stretches. And Kid Andrews, have done an incredible job with this team. Could you imagine, this Brentford team, considering all the players that they've lost, Norga to Arsenal, Wisa, and Buemo and all of that, and they are still very, very competitive, especially at home, where they actually do a lot of their damage as well. But everything for Brentford starts with Igor Thiago. He's the focal point. He's the aerial presence. He's the physical reference. Someone they're happy to go to very early and often. Around him, the engine is Vitaly Janelt. Janel, I'm probably not saying that very well. He's a box-to-box aggressive, winning second ball midfielders, and he keeps Brentford competitive in the middle of the pack. That's why Kid Andrews can afford to drop Damsgaard. He can afford to not even feel the presence of Norgard that has left that midfield. And when it comes to dead balls and free kicks from a wide position, this is where Mathias Jensen, becomes even more crucial. His delivery is clean, he's consistent, and Brentford, will look to him to create those moments for Igor Thiago to take advantage of. So Brentford's threat in a nutshell is Thiago in the box, Janelt, hunting second balls, and then Jensen turning those territory into chances. Now, their home form has been good, been patchy, but very competitive. I think that's the key thing. Very competitive. They're capable of very strong performances. If you look what they've done against Chelsea, what they've done against Liverpool, as well, and what they've done against Newcastle, and even the win against Sunderland, it all showed, that they can. They can show strong performances. I think that's what I'm trying to say. But they've also shown vulnerability when teams move the ball quickly and decisively. And that's going to be important for Arsenal. I think their home XG is respectable, but clean sheets have been an issue. And Arsenal have just, kind of discovered that knack. And listen, I know that is never for very, very long, but it's always good when Arsenal returns to clean sheet, against Leeds, against Sunderland. And this is another game that clean sheets will be really, really important. Right. So this game is going to be a scrap. It's going to be a scrap. It's going to be physical. And Brentford are going to use everything in the book. They're going to use their long throws. They're going to use their free kicks, everything to disrupt Arsenal's momentum and rhythm. So this game is going to be a test. No question about that. From an Arsenal perspective, guys, it's very obvious. We don't have Bukayo Saka, we don't have Ødegaard. And listen, I know that those two players have been a little bit out of form, but they still remain Arsenal's most creative force, when it comes to, games. But also in terms of just creating and changing the dynamics of the game, especially Ødegaard, who's been coming on to, much improved performances, let's put it that way. So Arsenal are going to have to evolve, and they have been evolving actually. This is one thing that has changed, for Arsenal. And for me, it's that Madueke and the Gyökeres effect. Something that we will need to lean into this game, because I think we have no choice but to do that. For me, one of the biggest tactical shifts, recently has been, Noni Madueke playing in the Arsenal team. He's more direct, he's more aggressive. He still needs some work in the final third in terms of his decision making and what he does when he arrives into the box. But he's willing to drive at defenders rather than just recycle possession. He's always willing to take players on, which is really good. And listeners, the more he does that, the more he starts to find quality. And I noticed in the Sunderland game, there were a couple of crosses, that he put in early. No one took advantage of it, but they were really good. And I look back at Leeds again, that goal that Zubimendi scored, it was a whip cross coming from Madueke. So he's definitely got that into his locker. But also, this is also coincided with Viktor Gyökeres becoming more influential in the Arsenal team. And listen, I've always been one of those advocates for Gyökeres. I think that he's a player that needs service. He's a player that needs to be fed the ball early and often, so that he can start to get into the groove. He's been occupying defenders, which is exactly what we want, attacking the box and stretching the back lines. And when Arsenal play, with this kind of vertical threat, it really changes how teams like Brentford, really defend. For this game, right, Arsenal control is going to be important. It's always important, right? And people talk about the fact that Arsenal are boring, they're not exciting and all of that. And I think, if you look at Man City and Liverpool game, that game was just chaotic, right? And listen, it's great for Sky Sports. It's great for, all of this, TV channels, for things to be end to end. But actually, that's not what you need to win a title. You need to control the things that you can't control, remove the risk from the games. If things are chaotic, you need to create the chaos yourself in a controlled way. And this is what Arsenal have done this season. They found their way to create, the chaos that they need, but also control the games as much as possible. And listen, when you look at the Arsenal games, you see what Mikel Arteta is trying to do. I expect Declan Rice to play in this game, and he's the stabilizer. This guy is just phenomenal in terms of his influence in the pitch. Alongside him was Zubimendi, right? I think, the game on Saturday is enough time for the players to rest, to come back. So I expect both Zubimendi and Rice to play this game, knowing fully well that there's a Wigan game, coming forward, where potentially these players can rest. The creative responsibility is going to have to rely on Eberechi Eze. Now, Mikel Arteta is going to have a decision to make, in terms of whether he wants Eze to start this game or he wants Havertz to start. But I think Eze can provide that link-up play, can find pockets and keep Arsenal fluid in this game. Out wide is going to be Martinelli or Madueke, because I think that, with the doubts to Trossard, Martinelli is a different kind of player. And, lately he's been, coming into that middle, of the pitch, almost like a 4-4-2 in a way. But Arsenal don't really play 4-4-2. But Martinelli likes to drift a little bit into that right hand side and into the center. So it's going to be interesting to see, how Mikel Arteta decides to position this game. It could be Eze going to the left with Havertz coming in, but I think Martinelli might start this game. We're going to have to stretch Brentford. I think there's no question about it. We're going to pull their wing backs deep and crucially move the ball quickly once the press is bitten. I think this is really, really going to be important. I think the game is going to be won in two places, right? First, midfield duels. If Arsenal match Brentford physically through Rice and Janelt's zones, they control the tempo. And second is going to be wide discipline. Brentford is going to look to isolate Arsenal's fullback and deliver the ball early towards Igor Thiago. So it's going to be important, the combination of fullbacks that Arsenal would want to use and how we can keep that threat and service to Igor Thiago. So Arsenal have to be switched on, no cheap fouls, no lazy clearances, no second ball complacency. So we've been talking about potentially what that 11 will look like, so Raya in goal for me. You've got Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, and I think Calafiori will start again to build his confidence. Then you've got Wright, Zubimendi. I like to see Eze, playing in that game. I think Martinelli, Gyökeres, and Madueke will start this game. But, I wouldn't be surprised if Jesus, gets the nod in this game as well, just to, keep that run going, and Gyökeres comes in, to make that impact. And I mean, if you've got Havertz on the bench and Gyökeres on the bench, then you've got really strong options that can come in and change the dynamic of the game. So I don't think this game is going to be pretty. I think it won't be open. Arsenal are going to have to stay patient, with the midfield battles and manage Brentford's moments. They will have enough. So I'm going to go for a solid 2-0 for Arsenal. Arsenal win this game 2-0. Professional, controlled, and managed. So, guys, that's my Brentford versus Arsenal preview. If you've enjoyed this, please hit the like and subscribe button as well, and share this with as many, Arsenal fans as possible. And then check out my post-game reaction, where I'll look at 3 things that Arsenal did and 3 things that Arsenal can improve on, after the game. But more importantly, if you want to check out my video in terms of the road to 90, how I broke it all down, what I think Arsenal needs to do, and how I think that we are on track, to get to those 90 points, then, also check out that video as well on the channel. Until the next one, guys, take care of yourself. Come on, you Gunners.